Hello everyone, how are you today? Today is day 19 of the Daily Marker 30-Day Coloring Challenge, and I want to show you how I created this. I did use some watercolors. Yesterday I posted a very 30-second video of me painting this with Memento, and that smears with watercolors. You're not supposed to use it, but it gave you like a gray field and some instant shadows or a really cool effect. So I wanted to try and do the same thing, a longer version for you guys to see. And the Memento ink didn't smear. So I guess I took longer. So you'll see the process. I was trying to recreate this. It didn't quite work. So let's go ahead. We're going to be starting with the extra large. This is another one of Power Poppy's XL stamps. And I have a mask on it. I'm just stamping the stem here. I'm using Memento, which you're not supposed to use for watercolor, because I wanted like the gray to come out of it. So I'm masking off that blossom. I'm going to put a leaf on the right. Just use some greenery. With the Memento. And I'm using the stamp platform from Tim Holtz. I'm really enjoying it. So now the leaf on the left I did upside down and it just looked weird. So I'm drawing a stem with a Sharpie marker. I got to make it work. I'm not going to re-stamp this. Fortunately, it does in the end. Now, I decided to, like I always talk about, one of my top 10 coloring tips is to fill in the nooks and crannies. And I've done this a few times, so I'm just kind of adding a little more intensity, a little bit of black in those little nooks and crannies, so you can really see where I'm doing that. Most of the time I do it after I've colored an image. So this time I'm doing it before, and since the ink isn't that dark, it'll help me kind of know where to lay a darker color. So we'll see. I don't worry about that, but now here I'd love to add these little ticks and tears in the leaves. It's kind of like a little colored in Y, but I just think it makes it more interesting and I love it. Now you can see some of the gray is coming from the black here. I have a piece of paper under my hand so I don't smudge the ink with my hand. And I've wet the petal and I'm dropping in some of that distress ink. These petals are a lot smaller, so we're just going to watercolor a few of them, and then we're just going to move on to the larger petals. And I guess coloring in the nooks and crannies, and it just took me longer to get around to watercoloring, and I didn't get as much gray as I did from my flower that I did yesterday that I showed you at the beginning of this. So I want to try it again. I want to get this down. I just think it was kind of a neat thing. So I'm just moving, kind of alternating between these petals so that my colors don't run together. And I'm using a fairly generous amount of water, like a thick layer of mayonnaise, or let's say cream cheese, a thick layer of cream cheese, because then I can drop that color into the water. And if you have too much water, then you can't add any color. So there's that balance that you have to find, and it just takes practice. And I don't know what brush I'm using. I know a few people ask that. I'll try and focus on that in the next video. But Dawn from W+9, who is a true artist, she's amazing, and she said, what matters most is the paper. The brush doesn't matter. The paper matters the most. And she said the watercolors don't matter. She feels it's more important to spend money on good paper. So my blog, I will link to the paper that I'm using here. So I'm working on these larger petals. Larger petals are a lot easier. It gives you more space for that water to loosen up and to get more of a gradient look. which is, more of a darker area and a lighter area. So I have like a lighter distress ink, and then I'm adding a medium color, and then I'll drop in just a little bit of dark in that little bottom. So I'm really trying to leave a white area on my petals. Now this is zoomed in, so you can't always see what color that I'm picking up, but I think you just get the gist of it. So we're going to continue coloring these larger petals, and I'm going to speed it up, and then I'm going to bring in some brown, and after the brown I'm going to just sharpen up some of the edges. Some of the edges I was successful leaving white, and some of the other ones I wasn't, and I just felt like I wanted more white. So I'm going to do that at the end as well. So now I'm just alternating petals so that the colors don't run together. Now one thing you could do is heat set between the petals. You don't have to worry about that. Sometimes I like just to do a wash of color, let it dry, and then come back and add another color. So there's so many different ways you can do this. I'm just dropping in that light color here and just kind of tapping it around. And then I'm picking up a deeper color. I'm using orange. I think it's Spice Marmalade. And then I brought in like some barn door just in the little corners there. Now I'm excited because I'm going to be taking, I think it's 6 sessions, a physical watercolor class. Imagine that. There's like this park near us, and they're teaching a watercolor class, so I thought I'd take it. So hopefully I'll have some new tricks. But it starts Wednesday. It's from 4 to 6. So it should be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so I'm just moving on these petals. Now one thing I'll say is sometimes you get like a water line when you're watercoloring. So what I'll do is I'll wait until it dries, or if it's not too wet, I'll take a wet brush that's with clear water and just cover the whole petal with a damp, just like a little bit of water, and it kind of smooths out that line. Then you don't have like that water line. I don't want those water lines, and that does work. So I just wanted to point that out. What else? So I think I'm just watching myself, thinking if there's anything else. Now there's like absolutely I'm not pulling out any of the gray tones from this Memento ink. So I'm really excited to try this again. I'm determined to get this effect to work again. And it's interesting, once this dries, it didn't smear at all. So you can use Memento when you're watercoloring. Now here, there's just a little bit of gray, but so again, I'm just putting a layer on the petal of water. Some of my water's tainted now, so you get a layer of color, and then I drop in some color. I'm leaving a white area. And that's it. It's that simple. Sometimes I go in after and use some colored pencils, but I wanted to use brown instead. So I have some twig, some brown distress ink, and I'm just bringing that in the little nooks and crannies, in the little corners. I'm pointing. You can't even see where I'm pointing, but you can see where the brush is. So I'm bringing the brown in, and then I'm wetting it, spreading it with a wet brush. And I'm in between takes, if I have too much water, I take the water on my towel. So there's that balance between too much water and then just, now you can see I have a wet brush there, and I don't want a line of brown, I just want to smooth it out. So I'm using the wet brush on the entire petal. And then in a minute, I'm just going to take out, when I dip my brush into the paint or into the water or onto the towel here and just speed it up. And it's kind of cool to watch how it just kind of transforms, since I'm going to be doing the exact same thing. I know your time is precious, so I just like to spend the time to cut all those movements out, and then you can just kind of watch it happen before your eyes. So that's it. You can just watch that now be dropped, the color just be dropped in. And for some reason, it just makes it easier to understand what I'm saying, I think. Let me know what you think about that. But I'm really pleased. I like that the richness that the brown gives on these petals. And again, you want to make, before you add brown, you want to make sure that everything is dry. Otherwise, it's just going to look like mud. So I actually heat set my flower. Excuse me, I heat set it. And when I do that, I flip it on the front and the back, keep rotating. And I made sure it was like bone dry. And then I started adding the brown just to some of those little areas, those little nooks and crannies. And it doesn't matter where those nooks and crannies are to you. You just want a darker area and a lighter area. And as you guys know, I don't worry about where the light's coming from. So we'll see where this goes. Now, I mentioned I'm just adding a little more accents of the white on the edges. Some I was successful. I don't want too much of this gel pen, but I just want a little bit. And there's a few little areas where I got some red, went over the line or something. I can just clean up those little areas. Before I use the gel pen, I always say to have the best success is to go slow and let it flow. And I like to warm it up on my finger. So you'll see the dots I keep getting more dots on my finger. I edited that out, but sometimes it kind of runs out and I just start it on my finger so I know it's flowing, and then I put my pen back down on my paper. I was going to use this white paper and it just wasn't, this white pencil, it wasn't opaque enough. So I just never let go of it. Now I have I started during the day and then I finished this during the night so you can see the light changing. So now I have a black pencil and I just want to sharpen up those little nooks and crannies, just add a little bit more darkness just to some of those areas. And I'm using my black pencil for that. Sometimes I like to use a navy or a dark red. And you can also, tomorrow for my coloring, I might add more highlights with the colored pencil. We'll see what I feel like. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for being so patient. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've had a video. And check out my blog, please. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.